The village of Obunago, the land of beautiful palms, was famous across the great savannah for two things: its gold market, which glittered brighter than the midday sun, and its most famous son, a merchant named Chidi. Chidi was not just rich, he was a walking monument to fortune. He owned 4 sprawling houses, a stable of swift horses, and clothes woven from silk brought from lands across the salty sea. But Chidi had one thing in even greater abundance than his wealth: pride. He believed himself to be a man of perfect taste and flawless destiny. Because of this, he had set one impossible standard for his life. He would marry only the most beautiful woman in the 5 surrounding kingdoms. Not the kindest, not the wisest, but the most stunning, whose beauty would make other women weep with envy. His mother, Mama Uche, a woman whose eyes held the quiet wisdom of the ancestors, watched her son's arrogance grow like a massive tree in a small pot. "Chidi, my son," she pleaded one day, stirring a pot of soup fragrant with forest herbs. "The beauty of a flower lasts only a season. What matters is the root. Seek a woman whose heart is fertile, not one whose face is a sculpture." Chidi simply laughed, a loud, confident sound. "Mother, why settle for a clay pot when the gods offer me one made of polished brass? When I bring my bride home, the sheer sight of her will increase my wealth. People will travel just to witness her perfection." Mama Uche sighed, knowing that when pride takes root in a man's heart, even the ancestors cannot easily pull it out. She gave up talking, but she did not give up watching. She began praying not for Chidi's marriage, but for his humility. The first glimpse. Chidi's search lasted 3 long, fruitless years. He rejected princesses, famous dancers, and even the daughters of rival kings. He found fault in all of them: a voice too sharp, a laugh too common, a walk too swift. One hot afternoon, Chidi traveled deep into the quiet, humid forest to a hidden place known only to a few traders. It was called the Silent Market, a place where people bartered not just for goods, but for secrets and ancient knowledge. It was there, standing by a table covered with intricate baskets woven from rare river reeds, that Chidi saw her. She was utterly, breathtakingly silent. Her name was Nneka. She did not call out to customers. She did not smile when Chidi's shadow fell over her. She simply stood, completely still, the air around her cool and clean, like the deepest pool of the river on a scorching day. Her skin was the flawless, deep color of polished obsidian. Her frame was delicate, yet her carriage held the stillness of a queen. When she finally raised her eyes, large, luminous eyes, the color of pale moss, Chidi felt, for the first time, not pride, but a sharp, aching need. She was the perfection he had dreamed of. Chidi immediately forgot his trade. He forgot his horses and his silks. He spoke to her, his voice, usually booming with authority, dropping to a nervous whisper. "Maiden, you are more beautiful than any song ever sung in Umbunagu." Nneka looked down at her hands. "Kind merchant, beauty is a burden that fades with the setting sun." "No," Chidi insisted, his voice fervent. "Your beauty is the dawn, forever rising. Tell me, where do you come from? Who are your people?" Nneka lifted her head, and for a moment, her eyes seemed to hold the cold, deep secrets of the earth. "I come from the river of the forgotten vows," she replied softly. "I have no family. I'm a child of silence. I have only myself and my craft." Chidi was elated. An orphan, no complicated in-laws to argue dowry, no noisy, demanding relatives. She was a blank slate upon which he could write his perfect love story. His pride swelled up like a tide. This was his destiny, a perfect diamond found in the dirt.
He spent the next 7 days at the silent market, showering her with the rarest things: silver chains, silk shawls, and polished amber beads. Nneka accepted them all with a quiet grace, her expression unchanging. She seemed neither excited nor ungrateful, only accepting. Finally, Chidi knelt before her. "Nneka, come home with me, be my wife. I will give you everything my wealth can buy and the love of 1,000 lifetimes." The unbreakable vows. Nneka paused. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. A slight tremor ran through her delicate frame, as if the air itself had cooled. "Chidi," she said, her voice barely audible, "I accept your proposal, and I promise to be a good, honorable wife to you." Chidi's heart soared. "But," Nneka continued, holding up a slender finger, "I live by 3 vows. If you break even one, I must leave you immediately, and the consequence will fall upon your head alone. Do you understand? Your promise must be unbreakable." "I swear it on the graves of my fathers," Chidi declared proudly, already annoyed by the inconvenience of Rose. Nneka looked him in the eyes, her pale, moss-colored gaze piercing his arrogance. "The first vow," she said clearly, "is that no human hand, not even yours, must ever touch my hair. It must remain covered in cloth or left free. To touch it is to see what should not be seen. The second vow," she continued, "is that no one must ever watch me bathe. I must be completely alone when I cleanse myself. This is a private ritual. The third vow," she finished, her voice a warning whisper, "is that you must never ask me about my past. I have no mother, no father, no history. What I tell you is all there is. Never search for the river of the forgotten vows." Chidi find these rules strange, yet simple enough to keep. He saw them as charming quirks, proof of her exotic mystery. He smiled, full of assurance. "Done, Nneka. These are easy promises for a man who treasures you. You will be safe with me, and your secret will remain hidden." He swept her up and carried her out of the silent market, back towards Ogbunagu, the triumphant merchant with his trophy bride. He never noticed that as they left the forest, the leaves of the ancient trees did not rustle in farewell, but in a sound that was closer to a deep, sad sigh. Back in Ogbonagu, the village exploded with gossip and admiration. Nneka was truly magnificent. But beneath the surface, Mama Uche's unease deepened. Nneka was a perfect wife, yes. She kept the house spotless. She spoke softly. She never complained. She needed no servant. But she was a creature of peculiar rigid habits that began to wear on the household. She ate only the whitest rice and the freshest garden greens. Yet she drank almost nothing. She slept only when the moon was dark. On nights when the moon was bright, she would sit by the window, completely motionless, until the first hint of sunrise. She moved with a strange gliding silence, never truly walking, but flowing. And then there were the vows. Mama Uche, wanting to perform the traditional ritual of styling the bride's hair before the marriage ceremony, approached Nneka with a silver comb. "My daughter," the older woman said gently, "let me braid your hair with cowrie shells for the ceremony. It brings blessings and good fortune." Nneka froze. Her entire body went rigid. Her usually pale eyes flashed, not with anger, but with intense, naked fear. "I cannot, Mama Uche," she whispered, backing away. "Please, I am honored, but you must not. It is forbidden. My hair is not for human hands." She clutched the silk scarf around her head fiercely, and Mama Uche saw something, a brief faint glimmer of something metallic and sleek beneath the cloth before Nneka turned away. Mama Uche's heart sank. She went to Chidi. "Your wife is not a child of the soil, my son. Her movement is too fluid. Her taste is too small. She is like the river itself, beautiful but dangerous to hold." "She is magnificent, mother. She is unique. You are simply jealous that your hands cannot touch her perfect beauty." That insult struck Mama Uche hard.
but she swallowed the hurt. She knew Chidi's pride had become a shield against common sense. She would have to watch and pray harder. As the wedding day approached, the entire kingdom seemed to hold its breath. A severe, devastating drought settled over Obunagu. The crops withered to dust. The river, the source of life, began to shrink, its banks cracking open like old leather. Panic gripped the people. Chidi, usually confident, became desperate. He had promised his wife to be a prosperous life, but now his riches were useless against the wrath of nature. He went to Nneka, worried and distraught. "Nneka, what good is beauty if we starve? My business is failing. The village is dying. The gods have turned their faces away." Nneka looked at the dying land, then at Chidi's desperate face. She spoke quietly, without her usual stiffness. "The gods have not turned their faces, Chidi, but the earth remembers the promises broken upon it. The cure is not in gold or silk. It is in what is forgotten." Chidi had no idea what she meant, but he was too distracted to ask. That night, when the moon was but a tiny silver shroud in the sky, Nneka left the house. She went alone, gliding over the dry, cracked earth toward the nearly empty riverbed. Mama Uche, unable to sleep, watched from her window. She saw Nneka reach the narrow trickle of water that remained. Nneka then removed the heavy cloth from her head, letting her true hair or whatever was beneath the scarf flow freely. Mama Uche was too far away to see the details, but she saw a shimmering, sleek, powerful reflection in the moonlight, a shape that did not belong to human hair. Nneka then began to sing. It was not a human song. It was a low, humming drone, a vibrational sound that seemed to come from the deep earth itself, vibrating through the bones of the land. She did not sing long. When she was finished, she replaced the cloth, returned to the house, and waited patiently for the dawn. The next morning, the village woke up to a miracle. The river did not flood, but the trickle had deepened. More importantly, every dry well in Obunagu had suddenly, silently filled with clear, cool water. The drought was broken. Not by rain, but by an unseen, profound flow from below the earth. The people cried out, "The gods have favored Chidi's beautiful bride." Chidi was triumphant. "See, mother, her perfection brings luck. She has divine favor." He never knew that Nneka had broken one of her own protective rules. She had used her true self to save his people, simply because she loved the kind, humble man she saw buried beneath the layers of his pride. She knew the cost of using her true self, but she paid it to protect him. The wedding was set for the next full moon, a mere 6 days away. The atmosphere in the house was strained, a strange mix of joy and deep apprehension. Nneka was more tense than ever. She avoided Chidi's touch, even a simple clasp of hand with a sharp, involuntary jerk.
The second vow, that no one must watch her bathe, became the next point of contention. One afternoon, a young kitchen servant named Bisi, new to the household, was sent by Mama Uche to deliver a fresh towel to the bathhouse. Bisi did not know the strict rules. Bisi pushed the door open, just a crack. "Mistress, your towel." Bisi's words died in her throat. She slammed the door shut and ran, screaming until she was hidden in the storage room. Mama Uche, hearing the commotion, rushed to the frantic girl. "Bisi, what did you see?" Bisi was shaking so hard she could barely speak. Mama Uche, her skin, it was like glass. It was shimmering. And her feet, they were not feet. They were wrapped tight like a tail, coiled in the water. Mama Uche felt a cold wave wash over her. She knew Nneka was not fully human.
She was a spirit of the river, a powerful water being, a serpent in her true form, drawn from the deepest places of the forgotten vows. She went straight to Chidi, who was inspecting the gifts. Chidi, you must break the engagement now. She is not human. She is a creature of the river. She will destroy you. Chidi finally lost his temper. He had invested his entire reputation in Nneka's perfection. Enough, mother. You are inventing evil. Bisi is a young, frightened girl. Nneka is shy, yes. She is modest. That is what makes her pure. You are jealous because your youth has gone and you cannot bear to see my great happiness. The words were harsh, cruel, and definitive. They severed the last thread of patience Mama Uche held. She wept, but this time, not for sorrow, but for the devastating price her son was about to pay for his blinding pride. She packed a small bag and left the compound, stating clearly, I will not witness the ruin you have brought upon yourself. I will wait by the river until the morning after your wedding. If you survive, I will return. If not, know that I tried to warn you. Chidi watched her leave, a triumphant, self-satisfied smirk on his face. He had won. He had secured the most beautiful wife, and he had silenced the voice of doubt. Now, nothing could stop his perfect wedding. Nneka knew the truth. When Mama Uche left, Nneka felt the protective wall the old woman had laid over the house finally shatter. Her time was up. She sat at the table and began to write, not with ink, but with the blood of a rare root onto a piece of smooth, bleached reed paper. She wrote a message in a language no human in Obunagu could read, the ancient language of the water spirits. She wrote about the true history. Long, long ago, Chidi's ancestor had sworn a vow to the great river spirit, a promise of protection and peace in exchange for eternal prosperity. That ancestor, once rich, had later turned his back on the river, focusing only on the land, breaking the vow and insulting the spirit. To restore the balance, the great spirit demanded a price. The proudest son of the lineage must marry the spirit's daughter, Nneka. If that son proves truly worthy, if he showed humility and could respect the simple vows of his wife, the curse would be lifted and the lineage would be purified. But if he broke his sacred promise, Nneka would be forced to transform, and the serpent spirit of the forgotten vows would reclaim the land, consuming all of Chidi's arrogant riches. Nneka sealed the letter with a drop of her own water-cool blood and placed it under the thickest stone in the middle of the courtyard where no one would ever look. It was her final act of love for the man she wished he could have been. The wedding day arrived, coinciding with the fullest, brightest moon in a decade. It hung in the sky like a giant watchful eye. The ceremony was spectacular. Chidi looked like royalty. Nneka looked like a goddess. Every person in Obunagu and hundreds from neighboring villages came to witness the perfection of Chidi's choice. The air was thick with the scent of spices, drumming, and joy. Beneath the splendor, Nneka was trembling. Her stillness had become fragile. She moved through the ceremony like a ghost, her pale eyes darting toward the western hills where the moon was rising. When the ceremony was finally over, the people escorted the couple to the bridal chamber, shouting blessings and good wishes. Chidi, drunk on wine and arrogance, smiled and waved. This was the pinnacle of his pride. He had the wealth, the fame, and now the absolute, flawless beauty. The door closed, the joyous noise of the feasting hall fading to a muffled murmur. The bridal chamber was vast and luxurious. It smelled of jasmine and heavy perfume. Chidi turned to his bride, his heart pounding with pure, impatient desire. Nneka, he breathed, reaching out. At last, you are mine. Nneka stood rigid near the bed, her face covered by the heavy traditional headscarf. Her hands were clenched tight at her sides. She was shaking, a profound internal tremor. Chidi, she whispered, her voice strained, barely the voice of the maiden she knew. Please, I beg you, do not break the promises. Wait for the morning light. The moon is full tonight and my power is not my own. Chidi laughed, the sound hollow and impatient. Nonsense! I waited 3 years for perfection. Do you think I will let a foolish girl's superstition keep me from my wife? He began to remove the outer layers of the wedding cloth. Nneka did not resist. She let the velvet and silk fall to the floor. She stood before him in a thin, white shift, beautiful, terrifyingly vulnerable. Now only the scarf remained, the one protecting her hair. The first vow, Chidi, Nneka pleaded, her eyes filled with unshed tears. My hair, do not touch it. Chidi's pride rose up, choking his common sense. He saw the scarf as the last barrier, the last test of his mastery. She was his wife. She belonged to him, secrets and all. You are my possession now, Nneka, he said, his voice hard with possessiveness. There will be no more secrets in my house. He reached out. His fingers, heavy with gold rings, grabbed the edge of the scarf. Nneka let out a sharp, gasping cry that was half human, half hiss. No! But it was too late. Chidi pulled. The headscarf fell to the floor. What was revealed was not hair, but a magnificent, terrifying sight. It was a crest of scales, thick and perfectly formed, like a crown of highly polished bronze. The scales caught the moonlight coming through the window, shimmering in the deep blue night. Chidi gasped, stumbling back against the wall. He did not scream. The shock was too profound. Nneka's composure finally broke. The fear in her eyes was agonizing. You broke it, Chidi, she wept, the sound laced with a vibrating metallic tone. You broke the only thing that kept me human. You valued your pride over your promise. This house is no longer safe. As the full moon climbed higher, the transformation began, agonizingly irreversible. Nneka fell to her knees. Her slender frame began to swell, crack, and shift. The delicate bones of her spine lengthened, stretching beyond human capacity. Her white shift ripped as the powerful cold muscles of her back bulged. Her beautiful, perfect legs twisted together, melding, thickening into a massive muscular tail. The metamorphosis was not fast, it was agonizingly slow, a painful display of broken magic. Chidi watched, frozen, as the human Nneka dissolved into the terrifying truth of her identity. Her beautiful face was the last to go. Her nose flattened, her jaw extended, and her pale eyes filled with a searing, radioactive yellow light. The last sound that escaped her mouth was a mournful human cry. Chidi, I am sorry. Then the serpent spirit took over completely. It was colossal, not a monster, but a being of ancient raw power. A magnificent, terrifying python, thick as a tree trunk and longer than the courtyard. Its scales were the color of the river bottom, dark and damp, and the crown of bronze scales on its head glowed with the power of the full moon. It was the spirit of the forgotten vows, brought to life by Chidi's arrogance. The serpent spirit looked at Chidi, and in its yellow eyes there was no recognition, only immense, profound sadness and judgment. It did not attack the man who had betrayed it. Instead, it struck the room itself, With one single mighty thrash of its tail, the serpent smashed the expensive wardrobes, shattered the mirrors Chidi used to admire his own reflection, and completely crushed the gold-leaded marriage bed. Everything Chidi treasured, his wealth, his luxury, his pride, was reduced to splinters. Then the serpent reared back, let out a roar that was a combination of a thunderclap and a monstrous hiss, a sound that terrified the entire village, and it launched itself out of the broken window back toward the silent, distant river. Chaos followed. The feasting villagers scattered, screaming. Guards, armed with spears, refused to enter the bridal chamber, staring at the destruction. Chidi was found huddled in a corner, weeping, holding the torn piece of Nneka's headscarf. He was a broken shell of the proud man he had been, his mind shattered by the horror. The king, for Chidi was the son of a noble line, sent priests, healers, and warriors to retrieve the lost bride. No one succeeded. The river, which Nneka had so kindly filled for them, now pulsed with a frightening, angry current. The fishermen dared not cast their nets. They saw fleeting glimpses of the colossal serpent, sometimes coiled on the bank, sometimes moving with impossible speed in the water, guarding its secrets. Chidi, now humbled and silent, barely ate or spoke. He could only repeat one thing. I broke the promise. I broke the promise. Mama Uke returned the next morning, her eyes full of sorrow, not triumph. She went to her devastated son. I tried to tell you, my child, she whispered, holding him. You married the reflection of your pride, and pride always leaves a bitter harvest. Mother, how do I save her? Chidi cried, his voice hoarse. How do I bring the human Nneka back? I truly love her, even the serpent. Mama Uche looked at the wreckage of the room. You can't save her with gold, Chidi. You can only save her with what you destroyed. Humility. She then remembered the mysterious, intense moment when Nneka saved the village from the drought. She remembered the girl's final act before the chamber. Mama Uche began to search the compound, ignoring the wreckage of the wedding. In the middle of the courtyard, under the thickest stone, she found the bleached reed paper Nneka had left. It took Mama Uche 3 days to find the old wise woman in a neighboring village who could read the ancient language of the water spirits. The old woman read Nneka's message, and her face turned pale. The serpent spirit is the guardian of the forgotten vows, the old one explained. Your ancestor broke a sacred oath of balance and protection, bringing a curse upon the proudest son of his line. Nneka was sent not to marry him, but to test him. If he kept his word, the simple, humble word of a human, the curse would be lifted. But he failed. He chose to look at the secret rather than honor the promise. The serpent spirit has claimed her, and his family's debt is now enormous. Is there a way to bring her back? Chidi begged, completely defeated. Only one, the wise woman replied. The serpent is fed by pride and repelled by selfless devotion. Chidi must prove that the arrogant merchant is dead and the humble man is alive. Chidi immediately agreed to the painful task. He went to his 4 houses and his overflowing treasuries. He took all his money, all his silks, all his horses, and every single piece of gold he owned, everything he had used to build his image of perfect success. He did not sell them for profit. He gave them away. He distributed every item to the poorest, most neglected families in Obunagu. To the widows he had ignored, to the orphans he had never greeted, to the farmers whose fields had been destroyed by the drought. He did this in silence, asking for no praise, only their forgiveness for his past arrogance. When he was done, he was left with nothing but the simple thin robes on his back and the reed paper containing Nneka's prophecy. He was penniless, landless, and publicly shamed. But for the first time in his life, Chidi felt free.
He then walked to the river where the serpent spirit now lived. He walked not as a merchant or a proud man, but as a penitent. Mama Uche, tears streaming down her face, watched him go. He reached the river bank at sunset. The water was dark, turbulent, and ominous. "Nneka," Chidi called out, his voice strong but stripped of pride. "I am here. Chidi the merchant is gone. The proud fool is dead. I have given everything away, and now I have nothing left but my word." The water churned violently. A moment later, the great head of the serpent spirit emerged from the black water, its crown of bronze scales dripping. Its yellow eyes were fixed on the humble man. The serpent opened its massive mouth and let out a chilling, judging hiss. "You destroyed me with your pride. Why should I believe your humility?" Chidi did not run. He knelt, bowing his head to the mud. "You are right," Chidi confessed, tears falling. "I did destroy you. I loved the reflection of your beauty more than the strength of your heart. I broke the vow because I believed my ownership was greater than my promise. I valued the visible over the hidden." He took the reed paper, the prophecy Nneka had left, and placed it gently on the river bank. "I offer you this now, Nneka. I offer the only thing I have left, the truth of my regret, the truth of my sin, and the truth of my new humble heart. If you cannot return, then take my life, for it is nothing without your love and without the honor I have finally learnt." Chidi closed his eyes, waiting for the massive strike, waiting for the payment of his ancestors' ancient debt. The serpent spirit did not strike. Instead, the water began to swell violently around the massive creature. The serpent let out a sound, not a hiss, but a deep, sorrowful wail, full of the pain of all the forgotten vows in the world. The bronze scales began to lose their metallic sheen, turning translucent. The enormous body began to shrink, to twist, to contract, a painful reversal of the earlier transformation. The massive head submerged, then rose again, smaller, smoother, losing its serpent form. The yellow eyes softened. Chidi looked up, unable to believe his eyes. The serpent spirit of the forgotten vows was dissolving, melting back into the river of vows, and in its place, floating gently on the surface of the dark water, was Nneka. She was still weak, still pale, and she was crying. She reached out a trembling human hand toward Chidi. Chidi rushed forward, no longer caring about the cold water or the mud. He reached her and pulled her gently onto the bank. "Nneka," Chidi whispered, holding her close, not with possessive pride, but with pure, reverent love. Nneka looked up at him, her eyes finally clear of fear. "Chidi," she whispered, her voice fragile, "you found the humility you needed. You saved yourself, and in saving yourself, you saved me." The next day, Chidi and Nneka walked back into Obunagu. They walked not to the ruined wedding hall, but to Mama Uche's simple, humble home. The people stared. They did not see the famous gold-laden merchant Chidi, nor the flawless goddess-like Nneka. They saw two simple, quiet people, holding hands, their robes plain and mud-stained. Chidi had lost his 4 houses, his horses, and his entire fortune, but he had gained something far more precious, a true wife, a humble heart, and the wisdom of the ancestors. He and Nneka married quietly in Mama Uche's home in a simple ceremony attended only by the few families Chidi had helped. Nneka no longer feared the full moon. Her vows were now simple: to love the man who had traded his pride for her.
The moral of the story was passed down through the generations, whispered in the marketplace and by the river's edge, even to this day. Beware of the beauty that costs you your soul. The most important promise is not the one you make to others, but the one you make to your own heart to live with humility. For arrogance will turn even the gentlest love into a terrible judging beast, but true devotion can turn any beast back into a human. And always remember the simple truth: a broken promise is a debt the ancestors will always collect. Please let us know where you are watching from. Leave a comment below. We love to hear from you. Please like the video and share with your family and friends. Please also click the subscribe button so we can bring more videos to you. Thanks for being part of us.